The night was as dark as pitch, an inky void that swallowed everything in its path. Alex, a young man working for a local delivery service, found himself navigating a labyrinthine network of narrow, winding roads on the outskirts of town. His GPS had betrayed him, leading him deeper into an unfamiliar area. The rain pelted his car relentlessly, and the windshield wipers seemed powerless against the onslaught. The intermittent flashes of lightning revealed only fleeting glimpses of his surroundings. Thick woods on either side, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers, and the occasional signpost indicating the nameless roads he was traversing. As he drove deeper into this remote territory, a sense of unease settled over him like a heavy shroud. He couldn't help but think of the stories he'd heard from other delivery drivers, the tales of treacherous routes, eerie encounters, and the unexplained disappearances that had become the stuff of local legend. His GPS finally chimed, announcing that he had reached his destination. Alex peered through the rain-streaked windshield, his headlights illuminating a dead-end street that seemed to have been forgotten by time itself. A chill ran down his spine as he surveyed the desolation. There were no houses in sight except for a single mobile home at the far end of the road. Alex parked his car, the engine sputtering as it succumbed to the relentless rain. He grabbed the delivery package, its contents unknown to him, and stepped out into the deluge. The sound of raindrops hitting the pavement seemed to echo in the oppressive silence. He made his way cautiously to the mobile home's porch, each step like a drumbeat in the quiet night. The place looked abandoned, the windows shrouded in darkness. He placed the package down and hesitated for a moment, a feeling of foreboding gnawing at him. It was just a simple delivery, he reminded himself, but he couldn't shake the sensation that he was being watched. Then he heard it, the faint but unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching from the darkness behind him. Alex's heart began to race as he turned slowly to see two figures emerging from the shadows. They were tall and imposing, their faces hidden beneath the hoods of their jackets. One of them clutched what appeared to be a baseball bat, while the other held something long and menacing, a shotgun perhaps. Panic surged through Alex as he considered his options. He was trapped, with the two figures closing in on him. Fear gnawed at his insides, and he knew that staying was not an option. Without uttering a word, he bolted back to his car, leaving the package behind on the porch. Adrenaline coursed through him as he fumbled for his keys, his trembling hands struggling to find the ignition. The two ominous figures gave chase, their footsteps echoing ominously in the night. Just as Alex managed to start his car, he heard a chilling sound, a shotgun blast that shattered the stillness of the rain-soaked night. The car's tires squealed as he floored the accelerator, narrowly escaping what could have been a fatal encounter. As he sped away, rain-soaked and breathless, Alex's mind raced with unanswered questions. Who were those men and what did they want? What was in that package that had put his life in danger? He would never know. The memory of that ominous night would haunt him, a chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't supernatural, but the very real darkness that lurks within human beings. Days turned into weeks, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he had narrowly escaped something sinister that night. He kept his head down and continued his deliveries, but he couldn't help but wonder if the rain-soaked road and the mobile home hidden in the woods held secrets that were better left buried. In the end, he learned that not all tales of terror come from the supernatural. Sometimes the most bone-chilling stories are the ones that involve the darkest corners of humanity, lurking just out of sight in the dead of night. The city's subway system had a way of transforming into a realm of eerie silence and shadows as the night wore on. Mara, a young woman with a demanding job, was no stranger to late-night subway rides after work. But tonight, there was a palpable unease in the air, an unsettling tension that seemed to wrap itself around the empty stations and dimly lit tunnels. Mara descended into the subway platform, the sound of her footsteps echoing through the quietude. She glanced at her watch. It was well past midnight, and she was the only passenger waiting for the train. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead cast eerie, elongated shadows on the graffiti-covered walls. As the train approached with a screech of metal against metal, Mara boarded the nearly empty carriage. The doors slid shut behind her with a hiss, and the train began its slow journey into the underground abyss. Choosing a seat near the door, Mara couldn't help but feel on edge. An invisible weight seemed to hang in the air, a sensation that someone was watching her concealed in the shadows. Her instincts screamed danger, and she couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability. From the far end of the carriage, a man emerged. He was tall, his long coat shrouding most of his features. His hat obscured his eyes, but his gaze seemed fixed on Mara. An uncomfortable chill washed over her. The man moved with calculated purpose, closing the distance between them. Fear gripped Mara's heart, and she knew she couldn't wait any longer. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text message to her boyfriend, James, who had offered to pick her up from the station. "Stranger on subway. Meet me at station." As each moment passed, the man drew nearer. His footsteps were methodical, and his presence felt like a creeping shadow. Mara's eyes remained glued to her phone, her heart pounding, awaiting James's response. When the train pulled into the next dimly lit station, Mara rushed for the exit. She sensed the man's presence behind her, his silent pursuit growing more intense. Her heart raced as she stepped onto the platform, scanning the area for any sign of James. Just then, her phone buzzed with a message from James. "On my way. Stay safe." Mara's relief was almost palpable. Her eyes locked onto James, who was approaching the station just as the enigmatic stranger stopped in his tracks. The two men shared a tense, lingering stare, the air charged with unspoken threat. Mara hurried toward James, enveloped by a wave of gratitude for his timely arrival. As they walked away from the subway station, Mara couldn't shake the shivers that coursed through her. The encounter with the mysterious stranger served as a stark reminder that danger could lurk in the most unexpected places, even in the solitude of a late-night subway ride. Days turned into weeks, and Mara's mind often wandered back to that unsettling night. She couldn't help but wonder about the stranger's intentions. What had driven him to follow her in the empty subway car? What had he been planning? She couldn't deny the chilling realization that she might have narrowly escaped a potentially perilous situation that night. The memory of the man in the subway, hidden in the shadows, would continue to haunt her. A stark reminder that vigilance was crucial, even in the most familiar of places. In the quiet, moonlit suburbs, nestled among the rows of cozy homes, stood an imposing relic of the past, the Hollow House. With its decrepit facade and shattered windows, it was the kind of place that whispered of forgotten stories and chilling legends. For three adventurous teenage boys, Jake, Ben, and Mike, the lure of the old house was irresistible. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the three friends huddled together in secrecy. They had concocted a plan, a dare that would test their bravery and solidify their status among their peers. They told their parents they were spending the night at each other's houses, a well-rehearsed lie that granted them the freedom to venture into the unknown. Armed with flashlights, sleeping bags, and a mixture of excitement and trepidation, they stood before the looming silhouette of Hollow House. The wind whispered through its broken windows, as if urging them to reconsider their decision. But the thrill of the dare beckoned them forward. They entered the house cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. Moonlight filtered through the tattered curtains, casting eerie shadows on the decaying wallpaper. The air was heavy with the scent of damp wood and age. As the night wore on, strange sounds and flickering shadows kept them on edge. They heard creaks and groans, as if the very structure of the house was alive. Whispers of long-forgotten voices seemed to drift from the walls. Mike's flashlight illuminated a fleeting figure at the end of a hallway, a silhouette that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Panic surged through the boys as they exchanged wide-eyed glances. Was it their imagination playing tricks, or was something truly lurking in the darkness? With determination mixed with dread, they decided to lock themselves in one of the rooms until morning. They huddled together, their hearts pounding, determined to see the dare through. The room felt oppressive, as if it held the weight of the house's haunted history. Hours crawled by as they listened to the eerie symphony of the old house. Whispers, faint footsteps, and the occasional inexplicable chill that settled in the room. Fear had gripped them, but they were resolute in their determination to prove their bravery. As dawn's first light crept through the room's cracked windows, the boys let out a collective sigh of relief. They had survived the night, their nerves still frayed but their spirits intact. The dare had been completed, and they had faced the legendary Hollow House head-on. With trembling hands and a newfound appreciation for the power of fear, they unlocked the room's door and ventured back into the dimly lit corridor. The old house seemed quieter now, as if it had exhausted its repertoire of hauntings for the night. Exiting the house, the three friends made their way back to the safety of the suburbs. They had ventured into the unknown, confronted their fears, and come away with a story that would be whispered among their peers for years to come. The Hollow House had tested their courage, and they had emerged from the darkness with a bond that could withstand even the most haunting of challenges.